Hi, my name is Linda Grooms, and my colleague Don Finn and I have been working on a couple of projects and looking at universities and the curriculum and their programs. And we basically have looked at, the fact that universities and faculty design curricula and programs that we assume it builds learners' competencies to positively impact their fields of study and society, but we really don't know if that's true or not. Institutions tend to mark everything by the success of the title and the positions their alums have achieved. But does that necessarily reflect an internal transformation that's manifested in the posture taken by those graduates? We've looked at, in a preliminary study, we looked at 82 doctoral candidates across various disciplines in one institution in the Mid-Atlantic region of the U.S. that revealed the importance of community and active engagement between the candidates and their doctoral chairs. And then we sought to look beyond commencement to determine the impact of the institution's motto and the core values on their graduates and how they engaged with their current positions. So our research in this particular study was to determine the impact of the institution's core values and mission on their doctoral program alumni.
So just a little demographic information. For this study, we were looking at doctoral graduates from programs at the same university. And there were in particular five schools of study where we gathered our participants from. And we also looked at degrees that have been confirmed between 2018 and 2023. And the rationale behind that is we wanted to have some opportunity for the subjects to be postgraduate, post degree for a certain period of time, and to see what impact their program might have on the core values and the mission of the university. So we received 69 valid online surveys, and we conducted 6 focus groups. The focus groups varied in size, but overall we had 33 focus group participants. So we were very pleased with that number. And the breakdown of our participants by gender, as you can see, we had about 64% female and 36% were male. The age groupings were based on generation, and we just broke it down looking at their intake data and found that, not surprisingly, we had a generally low, we had a low number of baby boomers, those who were in the 60 to 78 year age group, but we had 3 participants. And you can see the largest group was the 44 to 59, the Generation X. And that was at about 58%. So, overall, we had a pretty decent representation of the different age groupings. Linda, various degrees.
When we really looked at degree format, we asked the participants, did they have a fully online program or did they have some part of it online and then some of it with some in-person elements, such as like a residency. And we found that 10 participants completed fully online programs, where 23 completed their online program, but they also had that element of in-person as well. And then when we looked at the schools of study, we had it broken down where SBL is School of Business and Leadership. As you can see, we had 1. Com is a School of Communication. We had 1, SBL, we had 8. School of Divinity, we had 4. School of Education, we had 16. And the School of Psychology and Counseling, we had 4. And then when we looked at degree conferrals, we were looking really at graduation years. We didn't want to go with the students that had most recently graduated because we wanted them to be out in the field long enough to see if they were able to really, if the motto and the values that we as an institution espoused and we had put in our program, we wanted to see if that kind of held. So we didn't want to do the most recent graduates, but instead we went back a couple years. So actually we went back to 2023 and then backed it up from there. So as you can see, we had 1 in 18, 2 in 2019. The majority of our students were in the last 3 years of where we started, with 10 in 2021, 8 in 2022, and 9 in 2023.
And it's interesting too, if I can just jump in, that of course we know that COVID was happening during that time, and although we didn't necessarily ask about the impact of COVID, it was interesting to see that we had quite a few, 2021 and 2022 in particular, where folks had their degrees conferred during that time. And it was interesting too, because of being an online program. And looking at most of them being online programs, well, we had the online only, and then the online with the in-person elements, and it was very interesting because, again, I don't know if this is representative of the generational influence, or if this is perhaps folks who responded to the outreach. Because one thing we didn't mention was that we partnered with our alumni office. And the alumni office was actually terrific to work with, because they were able to take their mass email list and were able to put in various conditions. Again, year of degree conferral, online, those identified in online programs, and so they had different qualifiers that gave us a very solid email list, and really, as you could see, with 69 valid respondents, and ended up having 33 total. We felt very good about those numbers, and that they were quite responsive to that. But anyway, I don't know if these larger numbers are a combination of COVID, a combination perhaps of having more recently conferred their degrees and completed their programs, or multiple of factors, but it was still quite interesting. And of course, the fact that we had so many who were from the School of Education was very interesting too, because we noted that in our previous study as well, the one that we're building off of, that was actually based on students who were still currently in their online programs, pre-dissertation completion, but are in the dissertation phase of the program. And again, we had quite a few who were from the School of Education, so we really appreciated that as well. So, as we mentioned before, we had focus group interviews, and the interviews, what we looked at was, again, the focus is, to determine the impact of the institution core values and mission on the program alums. So that was the total focus. And we also asked them about those core values, in particular, and pointing it out: excellence, innovation, and integrity. And then, of course, our motto, the motto is Christian leadership to change the world. And so the focus of looking at those larger questions and sub-questions, those ideas, we asked, the questions really focused in on lifelong influence and impact, looking at, because it's a Christian institution, any spiritual transformation that occurred during the program as a result of the program, looking also at professional impact, because the folks who participated in all these degrees are really professional focused, whether it's somebody who has become a clinical psychologist, somebody who perhaps could be an education administrator, pastors, business leaders, and so on. These are all people who were in professions that are public facing. And so what's the professional impact, and any examples? And also looked at the value building relationships within the program as a result of the program, and then looking at future suggestions. So the emerging themes.
One of the emerging themes is the fact the responses were about the influence on their daily life. Do our values, or did our motto, did either really make a difference on their daily life? And we saw that the integration of faith and learning did influence the growth of the Christian leaders. Again, we're a Christian institution, and excellency in all areas was emphasized. And it's not that we actually always talked about excellence, innovation, and integrity, but it was kind of just inherent in what we did. Some folks actually very purposefully mentioned those words, but they're words that we really believe in. And then the integration of character traits and technical skills led to effective leadership and strategic thinking. And some of the comments that we wanted to pull out a few comments that our folks had. And someone from the School of Divinity said that SOD, which is the School of Divinity, really heightened my sense of clarity, understanding, and knowledge, so I can be a leader in the church and the community, or wherever God plants me. Someone from the School of Education said, from the very beginning, there was a definite emphasis on excellence, and we hope that we really strive for that. An emphasis to show up in an excellent way in every setting of my life. And then someone for the School of Business and Leadership said, a foundation to be able to articulate how leadership functions within the domain that I work. So what we found is through their comments, they really were reflecting what we had hoped. And so that was a very exciting thing to see, that it was influencing their daily life.
So looking at spiritual transformation, again, this is important to us to look at. A few things that we found was the purposeful integration of faith and learning, and academic rigor and the spiritual connection going hand in hand. Really taking the fact that the integration is purposeful, that the rigor was there in their programs, but that the spiritual connection really helped, because these students really came from the perspective that they were called to their field and to the field of study. Support from the professors and their peers through prayer support and even group get-togethers and things like that were very important. Reinforcing a biblical worldview was also something that we found interesting and a recurring theme. And then the whole concept of training servant leaders, which is not necessarily solely a Christian concept, but it certainly is one that resonates. And you can see here again, just pulling out various quotes. A 2021 SOE graduate said, "After my training, I had a deeper understanding of my faith and how to use that in my work life." And in particular, that's pretty telling, because of the reluctancy that folks have to integrate faith into the workplace. From the psychology and counseling students said, "I chose Regent because I knew it'd be a quality education as well as an integration of my faith." And then another 2019 graduate of SOE said, "There was a tremendous spiritual deposit, and I think that was one of the reasons why I chose Regent." So we found these themes and some of these supporting quotes to be quite telling.
And when we look at professional impact and examples, we really found that people were talking about the purposeful engagement from professors, and that and the cultivation for human connection with academic environment, that integrity and excellence were paramount as representatives of Christ. And again, you can look at the comments that were there, where someone says, it's how I act and how I behave that people notice I'm a Christian. I need to act in a way that is consistent with my values. So what we were seeing is what we were trying to instill was really coming out in their professional impact and the examples that they had. And School of Education said the same thing. I think in the professional setting, I'm trying to approach everything with my all and give it excellence. Again, that value of excellence. And then again, it goes back with the School of Business and Leadership when someone spoke about personalizing the motto of Christian leadership to change the world, one conversation at a time, which that's kind of exciting to look at.
And so value building relationships was another theme. And the idea behind the relationships, this is also a continuation of that initial study where we had folks who were in the doctoral the dissertation phase, how they reflected on how they built relationships during the coursework, and even during the dissertation they found that relationships were valuable. So this theme emerged again in this study of our alums, stating that the value of the relationships, providing encouragement, understanding, and collaboration. And there were a lot of examples and a lot of duplication in many of the answers where the professors they felt a strong bond and a connection to their professors professionally, and the value-added relationship to their cohort. Now, some of the programs run in a cohort model where folks will start at a given time and go through the coursework and so on. Others did not, but still cohorts, even some of the informal cohorts of folks who might have taken multiple classes together and built a bond. Of course, family, the impact of their family, and the encouragement that they provide, colleagues and their churches and their communities. All of those were mentioned as vital and very important in in value building and relationships. And again, the first quote, I felt all of my professors really modeled and lived the work and the core values that Regent espouses. Another one said, I felt very supported by the Regent community, our cohort, and the cohorts ahead and behind us as well. The psychology and counseling individual, throughout the program, I met some really intelligent people that pushed me to think deeper, which was really a very good example of really trying to stretch one another and challenge one another. And again, another education grad, that we all think differently, and the innovation and excellence that so many of the students in the program displayed as we interacted just really was inspiring to me. So again, those relationships were encouraging. They fostered collaboration and really moved many of them towards seeking personal and academic excellence.
One other student, to kind of bring this to a close, said in the School of Psychology and Counseling, for me, it was the innovation, the excellence, but not only that, but the motto which drew me to Regent. That's why I chose Regent. And that was very critical. And that, again, that was one of the things we were looking at. Does our motto, does it go forth? Or is it just that we think it does and we just assume it does? Or does it really have a transformational impact in our graduates' lives? And so we felt like we were doing a good job in that respect, at least from the ones that we spoke with.
Yeah.
And then when we go to summative thoughts, we think it's basically, when we summarize it, doctoral alumni noted that strong community and mentorship from faculty, when combined with the integration of biblical principles and academic excellence, will produce Christian world changers. These elements combine to build holistic servant leaders who impact the world for Christ through the perspective, careers, and community endeavors. So we felt like we were, at least with our institution, we felt like we had been successful in what we were trying to convey with the
And
group that we looked at.
yeah, definitely. And with this I'm sorry, with this quote here, I think that what I experienced from Regent was, when we are really intentional about our mission and who we are, that is attractive to others. And I think that this was something that was shared by others as well, is that not only the professional competence, but also spiritual growth, and just looking at excellence and innovation and integrity, that all of those things really help to combine, where folks felt like they were competent but also confident professionals, and that they were people who would really attract individuals who, whether they were side-by-side colleagues, whether they were clients or students or whatever the case may be, was that being intentional and having those values ingrained within them, due large in part to the curriculum and their academic experiences, were very valuable and actually attracted others to them as professionals.
So I think we probably both would just like to really challenge you to look at, if you are in an institution of higher education, that you actually will go forth and look at what you are trying to um, to put in within a student, that they are, graduating with that, and going out and carrying forth that there is a transformational purpose in what you're trying to put within them, or to instill within them, I guess is a better word for that. So we just challenge you to do that. And we hope that if you have any questions, or you would like to to talk with us more, we would love to hear from you. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with either one of us. And with our contact information, we have it there for both Dawn and I. We thank you very much.
Thank you so much for taking part in the session. We appreciate it.